So, what are your superpowers? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about what are your superpowers? And especially by being an entrepreneur. And then especially by being an entrepreneur who's 40 plus. And especially if you're entrepreneur 40 plus who is a parent or a spouse and just have so many roles. Have you ever thought about your superpowers? Well, before I help you to think about your superpowers, I want to share mine. For those of you who do not know me, I am Sharon D. Brown, and I'm the founder of Self Care U Academy. And here at the Academy, I'll help entrepreneurs and leaders to supercharge their self care so that they can sustain their sanity and thrive under pressure. Because the thing is that with being a leader, with being an entrepreneur, there's just so many hats, so many things that you're responsible for, and you just push through it. But when you identify and you know what your superpower is, and I want to say to train to make it stronger because that part gets forgotten at time, and that's one of the reasons that the academy focuses on sustaining. It's not just about building because most of the time most people fall off. But anyway, thank you for those of you who are live on Facebook and on TikTok here. And again, what I want to do is kind of just talk about, like I just say, like how I look at superpowers. Most of the time, I would say it's the thing that you're naturally good at. And as far back as I can remember, I had always been good about affirming others. It's like I can hear something, somebody can tell me their story, they can be doing something, and it's like, oh, yeah, wow, you did all of that. And, like as being a therapist, of course, majority of the people are coming in of what they are experiencing with difficulties and things like that. But when I hear them, what a lot of times they don't recognize is the skills that they already have um, actually has helped them navigate through, and really they're just feeling the residual of the residual and the impact of the experience in and of itself. Not always, but the majority of the case, that's what we're dealing with. As for myself, again, as far back as I can remember, I can definitely remember in middle school, middle school and high school, individuals name me like the philosopher. So you can kind of tell what that is. But for the most part, my superpower really is in affirming people. And you're like, well, how is that going to help me, as an entrepreneur and a leader? Y'all, if you really think about it, think about the stresses of the world, think about everything that is going on in that. Looking at something, I thought that uh, there you go. I thought I did something, but I didn't do it. But the thing is that sometimes I'll just say this. generally when it comes to your superpowers, in that it is the thing that you are naturally good at. And I was saying is that as far back as I can remember, when I was middle school, definitely high school, people would, it was like, oh yeah, Sharon, the Miss Philosopher, And I guess you could say I was somewhat of a inspirational and motivational person practicing at the time. And when it comes to life, there are different things that really like be coming at you. And just the way that the mind is, the body, the spirit, the soul, it can detach itself. It can make you attach yourself from yourself so you forget who you are and you forget of the natural talents and the skills and your gifts, again, your superpowers, because it's almost like kryptonite. That's what stress is. And when you hear about so many things, like as of, even though this is not new, but maybe I'll just say I'm sensing it more. I'll say that, or happen to pay attention to it more, even though I saw it, but I'm like, oh, wow. But I'll just say, of course, this was before Malcolm Jamal Warner passing, but it almost seemed like since his passing, it's like I just see more and more of individuals passing, either another celebrity or someone I know, not someone I know, no, but someone that I know who had a family or friend who have passed. And so just in saying that, that has an impact on you too. So what does that have to do with superpowers? Well, it has to do with your superpowers in that with all the different things that are happening is that they can attack your superpowers. Again, like kryptonite, it's wear and tear in your body. And so, again, my superpower is in recognizing other people's superpowers, but really to be able to see what they're good at, because someone can be telling me a story, whether it's in coaching or it's in therapy, and that I can see like how they were able to navigate that. And of course, my hope is that they would be able to see it themselves. The other thing I would say when it comes to my superpower is to naturally to be able to see when it comes to others is that, again, when someone is talking about a problems and I can really help individuals really see kind of like where they can go. Pretty much just, problem solving. And it's kind of like, oh yeah, well, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. So just meaning that there are all kind of different things that come to my mind, because you know why? Because I am naturally an optimist. I'm naturally just like, there is 100 different ways in which that can be done. And that's important, y'all. So you know what that means? That means do not get stuck. What's happening? Something's happening over there on Facebook. Do not get stuck. Do not get stuck, y'all. Do not get stuck on because something didn't work out. Don't get stuck there. Do not get stuck there, because it's not going to do you any good. It's not going to do you any good at all of getting stuck there. Because you know why? Because there's 50 million ways to do that thing, and it just didn't work out in and of itself. And I do want to share a story regarding superpowers, in that I'm not going to say that I had forgotten per se, but there was a period of time that my own superpowers were not as prevalent. And there's different reasons of how that can happen, but here and there, that's not the purpose of this video. We can do that in another video. But for those of you who have been following me and who know, part of my story, in that, I was crying for 40 days and 40 nights, and then which led me into, yoga, and then part of that, in that, by me being a therapist, I'm always looking for different ways of how to help people. But anyway, I got exposed to Reiki. I was at a conference. I was at a professional conference, and there was this lady who was telling a story about her brother and how she was able to help her brother with Reiki. And if any of you who are not familiar with Reiki, it's pretty much is energy healing. And the best explanation of it, if you think about the original Karate Kid, with the original Karate Kid, when Daniel hurt his, I think it was his knee or his leg, it was something, and Miyagi, he was laying down, Miyagi rubbed his hands together and put his hand over it, and it got better. That's pretty much is what Reiki is. Anyway, I met this lady. She specialized in that, and I just remember her story. And it was probably about a year later, and I'm like, I'm still looking for different ways of how to help people. And so I, got her information, looked her up, and she had her training. And so I got training in Reiki, but it wasn't just being training Reiki. It's what happened in the training. First of all, when she was talking and, about different things and people, and I'm like, because I didn't know this lady. I did not know her at all. And I'm like, how's she talking about me? But the thing is, y'all, when it comes to, I want to say this, I want to carve this out. When it comes to life experiences, it is pretty common. Not that I didn't think that, but I'm just saying it's just pretty common of different life experiences. If there's a breakup, if you think a certain way, it is pretty common. But what I was experiencing at that particular time in my life, and I'm like, ooh, because some things were kind of deep, that I had never shared with anyone. But then some things, I would say it brought a awareness of it as well. And I want you to kind of hold on to that, not just the awareness, but just kind of what happened. But she was talking, let's just say, different problems and issues that people have. But then she was talking about characteristics of people, but more so like their gifts. And she was talking about crystals, and she was talking about different things. And I'm like, ooh, but when she was talking about crystals and like what they do and things like that, then it reminded me as a kid where I used to collect rocks. And what are crystals? They're specialized rocks, right? And then she was also talking about intuition. And all that I'm going to say about intuition, I'm going to relate it to myself, is that there have been different times in my life in which my intuition is really heightened, meaning it's really good. And there are other times in which it's on the low end in and of itself. So when she was talking about, especially when she was talking about intuition, it reminded me, because I don't know about you all, but there are times, it doesn't happen all the time, but I can distinctly remember 3 times, at least minimally 3 times in my life, but it's happened before, even when I was younger, where you can have visions and they can come true. And sometimes, and like for me, mine comes more so in pictures. It's like a picture will pop up, or even I can be having literally a conversation within my head, within myself, with someone, but I don't know what that is about. Or I see a picture, but I don't know what it's about. And that's, that's as far as it get. And the best way to describe it, you know how when you're in a movie, you know how when you're watching a movie and sometimes the camera may come in on a scene, and then sometimes like at the time when you're watching it, you don't know the significance of it, but then as the scene continue, then you're like, oh, okay, that's why they showed that. That's how I am at times. I say at times. That's another conversation as well. But as she was talking, she reminded me of my gifts. You see that? She reminded me of my gifts. And I want to say, consciously, I didn't think I forgot it. But remember how I was talking about how different stressors can be kryptonite? So it can make you forget yourself and you don't even know that you have forgotten yourself. And so in saying that, meaning that my intuition is like, now that I know that, when I gain that knowledge, then I'm like, oh yeah, I need to pay more attention. But I'm going to tell you a story about that. There's, like I said, there's definitely 3, but I'm going to tell you 2 stories about that. One story is that I remember I was at my parents' place, and my stepdad was discharged from the hospital, among many other times. And let's just say it was the discharge sheet. And I was like, oh no, I don't need that. You know what I'm saying? He was already discharged. We have all the information. But anyway, later on, I needed to talk to his doctor's office. And then they were asking me specific questions. I can give them general questions, but they were asking me specific questions. And I'm like, I don't have that information. Because you know why? Because I did not take a picture of the picture that came into my head. Because I literally saw a picture in my head, let's say, of his pill bottle. I think that's what it was. And I didn't take a picture of it. I didn't think anything about it. Only thing I was saying, oh, I don't need it, because that's what I thought at the time. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes your superpower can be where you may be able to see things. Now, I don't get into all the meaning of all of that. I'll put it like this. There are other people who specialize in that. But if anything, I learned to pay attention. The other story is, I distinctly remember this, y'all. This is some crazy. This is crazy. Okay, I remember I was in my bedroom. I was reading, doing something, and a picture of my car came into my mind. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I want to say a picture of my glove, the console came into my mind. And then something said, like, lock your door. And I'm like, yeah, I know to lock my door. Okay. And I live out of, my original home is in Columbia, South Carolina. So I was living out of state and traveling back to Columbia, South Carolina, then went back home. And then even on my way home, I saw a picture of something gray. In my car is gray. And so I saw that, and I'm like, I was like, oh my gosh, do I need to like drive careful? And it put me on alert. I stopped by the store, got home, took the groceries out. Let's just say, went to bed. I did leave my my suitcase in the car. I did leave that in the car. And so when I did that, I'm pausing for a moment because of the fact Facebook just went out. Technology, right? It's like we learn how to make sure that we deal, and that we're not deal, but that we make those adjustments. Let's see here. And did this move here? All right, I'm not sure what's going on there. Well, Facebook, oh, wait a minute. I think it did. Well, anyway, may just have to ignore Facebook for the moment. But anyway, again, I saw a picture, went home, blah, 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 went back to the car to get the suitcase. And then when I went to get the suitcase, then I noticed that my stuff that was, I want to say, stuff that was in the console was all out. Somebody broke in my car and stole the suitcase. Because I forgot to lock my door. So what was that all about? When I saw the picture earlier in my mind and something was telling me to lock my door, it was reminding me to pay more attention. And I know what it was. It was because I took the groceries out of the car and I forgot. And it was late at night and I was tired and I forgot. But when you have those things, it's just to pay closer attention to it. So those are two examples of, pretty much I would say having visions and they can come true in and out of itself. So in saying that, by participating in that training, it helped me to identify to identify a superpower, and two, to remind me of a superpower. Now, were you listening to what I was saying? Did you pay attention? Because the reason I want you to pay attention, what I'm about to say next, it makes a bit difference. Because there are ways in which you can supercharge your self-care, which is your superpowers, in the fortitude and free circle. You heard what I said. What did you hear me say? You heard me say, yes, I have some natural superpowers, but it wasn't until I went to a training, someone was talking, and she reminded me of my superpowers, and she highlighted superpowers that I didn't know that I have. And I'm highlighting that. Let's just say training is a temporary community. You're in a circle. So by being exposed to others can help you with your superpowers. Being exposed to others, being in a circle, being in a community, because life is going to always be lifing. Different things. It can be in one moment. Someone can say something, someone can do something, and you forget who you are. You forget the strength that you have. And especially, if you've, like experienced any type of trauma, any type of traumatic event, anything that can, have an impact on you. And just with entrepreneurship is not the easiest thing. It has its reward, but it's not easy. And during that process, when you're working on a project or you're trying to do this, you're trying to do that, depending on where you are in your entrepreneurship, it can be very daunting at times. But it's imperative for you to remember of who you are, to be reminded of your superpowers. But not only that, it is just as important for you to strengthen your superpowers, because sometimes individual, let's just say this, because you are naturally good at or what you do, you may think or believe that you don't have to strengthen it or make it better, and that's not true at all. It is so important for you to make it better. It's so, like for instance, even though I may be good at, let's say, affirming other people, letting people, highlighting people's strength, I still need to make sure that I'm a good listener, that I still need to make sure that all of the skills and the things that's necessary for me to do that, even though I'm naturally good at it, so that I need to make sure I am either in a room getting some training, watching something, reading something, even practicing, so that that skill is there. It's almost like, let's say, for instance, anyone who does sports. You can be really good, you could be really talented, but you're even better when you practice. You're even better yet, when you're challenged. And so this is why it's so important as entrepreneurs for you all to be involved in communities where you can not just grow, but that can help you maintain your sanity and thrive under pressure. Because it can be forgotten. And sometimes you can be a little tired. Sometimes you may need some motivation. Sometimes you may need some inspiration. And sometimes you may need to practice. How do I get, some of this weight off of me? And there's different things within the community that we have that can help you with that. And so I am inviting you all to the Fortitude and Free Circle so that you do not have to carry the weight alone, but also where you are able to learn, different practices and techniques to offset the pressure, to offset the stress. Because if you're not purposely doing it, to be honest, most people they work through it to accomplish the goal, but in the meantime, you're damaging your liver. In the meantime, you're not eating right. In the meantime, you're not exercising. In the meantime, some individuals are losing their mind. No, you don't have to do that. There are different things that you can do. Let's say when it comes to habit stacking. Don't be trying to pile on so many things at the same time, and to be able to reframe and look and say, hey, do this need to be done today? And to plan, because that's the other thing. That's one of the things that I am still working on, still working through, is when it comes to planning. Because without planning, all that I can say is it is not good. And so, when it comes to your superpowers, again, you want someone that can help you with your own superpowers. It's not really just to feel better. Because sometimes, I don't know about this world, it's kind of like, well, they rub me the wrong way. Well, just because somebody disagree with you, no, that needs to be, keep your eyes on the prize. Use discernment, yes. Use discernment, but just because you felt a certain kind of way doesn't always mean that it's true. Because sometimes it be us, y'all. There are times I've had to look at myself like, ooh, okay, yeah, I can see how I misinterpreted that. So I'm wondering with you all, what are your superpowers? And how do you use it? And I don't want you to forget your superpowers, because again, if you are not safeguarding, that's where self-care comes to be, your superpowers, and if you're not strengthening it when you need it, you won't have it. You think it will always be there. It won't. A great example, when I was in high school, I ran track. And pretty much, 9th through 11th grade was pretty good. Each year, I kept getting better, right? My senior year, I was working, went to school half a day, worked the other half, and I practiced on my own, practiced with the team some, but not that much. So in saying that, my performance wasn't as good because I was a pretty good runner. You know, I ran the hurdles and I was on the relay and did the running broad jump. And that particular year, I did okay. But what made the difference is because didn't have the training, wasn't in the circle. Even though I did do aerobics, but aerobics and running is not the same. Nobody didn't tell me that, though. I didn't know that. It's like, oh, I get some cardio. It's not the same, y'all. It is not the same. And so in saying all of that is saying, know what your superpowers are and continue to feed it. But if anything, safeguard them too. Because if you keep going out in the entrepreneurship streets and you're doing too much, you're weakening your superpowers. And then the other part of it too, sometimes it's just life. Because remember I told you earlier that, again, I didn't even know that I had forgotten. I needed to be reminded of my own superpowers. Didn't even know I wasn't using it as much as I should. Because my superpower, part of my superpower in helping people to identify their superpowers is in affirming them. But then when I realized, oh, I am affirming, I am affirmation, and I wasn't feeding myself that because I didn't think I needed it until I did. And so whatever your superpower is, make sure you're feeding yourself your own superpower. You may need to borrow it from other people, and that's fine. Because I would say it's a combination of both. Because you want your superpowers to be heightened. Because the other part of it is too, in being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, because it's that business aspect. And I put it like this: in the end, it's going to do nothing but strengthen all of your superpowers. But especially if you're a beginner, even somewhere in the middle, well, I'm going to say this: if you're an entrepreneur and if you're not dedicated to personal development or self-care or self-development, then sometimes it can weaken the thing that you're trying to do. It can weaken your superpowers. So in saying that, meaning if you don't have that mindset, sometimes some individuals, even though they can be successful, let's say in their business, but then at the same time, there'll be other areas in their life where they may not be as successful. And not saying with self-development and personal development that you won't have any issues, because that's not true. But the thing is, it's more so that you can be reminded of who you are and you won't lose yourself completely when you are more focused on personal development. Because entrepreneurship and leadership is nothing but personal development, nothing but self-development. And so, again, what about you? What are your superpowers? And come join us in Fortitude and Free Circle so that we can help you maintain and sustain your superpowers, because you don't want to be giving it away. And you don't want, the dynamite or the kryptonite or the other mites to take over it. And that's another reason to be in circle, to be in community, to be around diverse, like-minded people so that you can maintain your superpowers. So for those of you who are curious about the Fortitude and Free Circle, comment circle and we'll send you some information.